that you turn to, someone you can rely on, closer each day, home and away.
Welcome to Home and Away, a Tottenham Hotspur podcast hosted by myself, Graham Spice, and Glenn Cowie, where we discuss all things Tottenham Hotspur with both a match attending and international supporters view. Glenn, are you good?
I'm pretty good. I'm going to start this episode with saying, yes, I'm well. When it pertains to Tottenham Hotspur, not so much, but I think I'm just going to go with this. I sent you something that may be a little bit crass to be heard, but as it said, I've got to say the best thing about being a supporter of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club is that one day we all get to die.
Yeah, hard but true.
Yeah.
Ironic then that some of my anecdotes from this week are related for stories that I picked up at my father's funeral.
Indeed.
I got offered hospitality tickets for Sunday to go with a good friend who was going to take me and my brother. Unfortunately, I'm travelling on Sunday to Athens for work, so I couldn't take them. So I was very disappointed. And then my
ever the optimist, certainly keep that offer warm in case we end up needing them for Wembley, Graham.
And then another friend, a good friend of mine since like school, he told me he worked as an electrician on the new stadium during the build. And basically, he'd been suffering with kidney stones, and he was given some medicine for it. And they said, well, just keep taking the medicine, and eventually you will pass them. And so, approximately where the stadium centre spot is now, there was a set of toilets, like porta potties, for them to use while they were working on the site. And his claim to fame is that he passed his kidney stones on the current centre spot. Oh, yeah. Wasn't quite the anecdote I was expecting at a funeral, but it was interesting nonetheless.
Is he a Spurs fan?
Yes.
Okay.
Not massively, but yeah. I'm sure he welcomed money, I'm sure, at the time.
A part of him remains at the stadium.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, I'll let you introduce Graham, introduce our guest.
So, welcome David Chen from the Hong Kong Spurs supporters. So, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
So, usually we start with a little bit about you. So, can you tell us where you are and what the time difference is, basically, to a match?
Right. Hello, guys, for all the listeners. Hello from Hong Kong. It's, a bit out of the way, as you will probably think about. And the time differences to Tottenham Hotspur and to London is 8 or 7 hours, depending on whether you guys are still doing the summertime thingy, which unfortunately you're still doing it. So that's just that, yeah.
Yeah, it causes some challenges for me and Glenn as well, for the same reason.
Yeah, but I always love the 8 p.m. UK kickoffs in our summer UK winter, because that's 7 a.m. for me. So that's a prime kickoff for me with coffee and cereal. But so David, you're obviously in Hong Kong. Maybe a lot of our listeners are questioning why Spurs, but why Spurs for you? Any memories that stick out? Any games that you can remember attending? Or was there a moment when you said, that's why I love Spurs, or that's what it's all about? Why is it Tottenham for you?
Yeah, I get what you guys are asking. It's basically, essentially, to paraphrase your question, why have I made the biggest mistake in my life? Right.
Yes.
So a little bit about my background. I'm a member of the Hong Kong Spurs club. I don't actually run it. So and I'm not originally from Hong Kong. I was born and raised in mainland China. So there's not a lot of exposure in terms of football, like Western football, especially in mainland China. And but one of the very few mechanisms that you can actually get access to it, growing up, in the early 21st century, because I was born in the year 2000, which, you guys as age just getting on a little bit, sorry, etc. But, but basically, at that time, all you can get is whatever the TV broadcasters in mainland China select, especially, they mostly select Premier League matches. So I remember one night in like 2019 or 2020, I was waking up to go to the toilet at like 2 a.m. in the morning. I just bumped into my dad watching a random Premier League game, and it's happened to be a Spurs game. And, well, he very charitably invited me to watch alone, and he noted that he basically said to me, David, look at the distinct style of play that this specific club is playing, and that club is, well, in Everton, Tottenham Hotspur, and that is the sort of seed that got planted. And because, well, my dad's a surgeon, and so I don't really get to spend a lot of quality time with him. So it's sort of become one of the very few things I remember from my childhood in relation to my dad. And that basically becomes the sort of, well, not like a spark in the powder keg, because obviously I'm not getting blown to smithereens, but that's beyond the point. So, and then what happens is that I moved to Hong Kong. You know, I support Spurs on and off, you know, a game here, a game there, of course, on the TV, and then moved to Hong Kong for university in 2019. So, I mean, I'm not sure whether you guys understand or sort of have experiences with moving to a completely new place with a new culture. There's a bit of a learning curve, and at the very beginning, you're very isolated because you're just someone who's just basically got parachuted into a place with not a lot of social connections and stuff. So the first thing I did is find out what are the people that actually understand the struggles of life. Well, through the vehicle of Tottenham Hotspur, of course. And that's where I located Hong Kong Spurs. So I basically went into the pub, have a few drinks with them, kind of get the feel of the players, and kind of have some advice from a couple of the guys there, what to pay attention to when you're in Hong Kong, what's the situation like, and, you know, what's the life experiences like in a completely different environment, basically. And so it kind of deepens from there, you know, it becomes more frequent. It's no longer something that you watch when it's convenient for you time-wise. It's something you watch because you've got mates and you've got friends that you actually want to see there. It becomes a social occasion. And then it escalates from there further. So I also moved to Amsterdam briefly for half a year, where I bumped into, well, I deliberately seeked out the Amsterdam Spurs supporters group, which I believe a few weeks ago was also covered on this podcast. So apologies for the Amsterdam plug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had and Dominic on as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, it's as you can see, like, these are really, really great people to, you know, hang out with, but, you know, inside the stadium, in the pubs where they do the activities, but also, like, just generally, you could talk about politics, you could talk about a lot of other stuff, and they always have interesting takes. So that's sort of where it deepens for us. I mean, even nowadays, if I'm in the UK, because I did move to the UK eventually, and then moved back to Hong Kong, I went to the UK for school. I attended an MPhil degree at Cambridge. So that's in last year, actually. No, the year before. So 2023-2024 season. I basically attended every game that I can possibly attend to in terms of Spurs, not just the men's team, but also under 21, and also the women's team, right? And every time someone came over from Amsterdam, we'd go for a drink, and then we shout some profanity to the referees together. You know, it's just great fun. It's just great fun, really. And I mean, so let's go back to the main question before I caught myself into a massive tangent and occupy a lot of the airtime that we've got on this podcast unnecessarily. Why Spurs? So for me, so the answer is personal to everyone, right? So for me, it's about the people I meet, but it's also about the football itself. It's about expansive, entertaining football, because that's what got me into Spurs in the first place. On that unfortunate midnight session with my father in front of the television screen, where we have to keep our voices down because my mom's obviously asleep. So that's a sort of seed, and that's why I always refer back to why Spurs, because they play nice football.
It's just funny that a chance full bladder ended up giving you a lifetime of pain.
It's always like that, isn't it?
Great
Fantastic.
story. Great story.
And actually, a lot of what you said resonated with both Glenn and me, I guess, because we've both been expats. You know, moved abroad, and you arrive in another country, don't know anybody. So I completely understand that.
Absolutely. I'm an expat, obviously in Australia now, but I lived in America for 12 years. Funnily enough, that's where I met Graham. But Graham also happens randomly to be from practically the same town as me in England, and his daughter worked for my mum, which we didn't know at the time. Anyway, that's for another time. But yeah, the coincidences were very odd. Anyway, but you're quite right. When I moved to Melbourne, I saw our Spurs fans and football fans and people that I thought that I could associate with, and now they're just really good mates, and we do a lot of other stuff together other than just watching Spurs. So that really did resonate. So when you've been to the stadium, David, is there a game that sticks out? Have you been at any memorable ones or anything that stands out for you that you kind of have fond memories of? That season you were there was kind of that. Was it Conte's last into Stellini and then into Ryan Mason, right?
No, it's the season after, so it's the full sort of and season.
Oh, so even better. But you were there for, yeah, okay.
The first 10 matches were pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes, I was not there for the first 10 matches because I was not yet at Cambridge. So maybe I'm the problem.
Yeah. You probably joined the day, you arrived the day that we played Chelsea, and then it was all downhill from there.
Well, I arrived the game before, I think it was the game.
It was around then.
Yeah, so, maybe it takes a bit of time for the effect of David to kick in, and it's all downhill from there,
Well, fantastic stuff. And I know we're going to cover a bit of a wider segment on this, Graham, but David, your master's was in football marketing, or give us a brief overview of that and whet the listeners' appetites, because we're going to do a bigger section on this that's really quite interesting and timely, I think, to the current football climate.
Right, so I mean, it wasn't exactly on the subject of football per se, my master. My master is MPhil in sociology. So I'm a sociology researcher. I'm still working as a sociology researcher now back in Hong Kong. But basically, the brief of my work is basically English Premier League clubs' market expansion. So basically, the entire trend that we see in the last 20, 30 years is the fact that these English Premier League clubs and also Premier League games are less and less exclusively focused on the English crowd, but more and more expanded into the global markets, becoming a global cultural symbol and product. And what I worked on is basically how these Premier League clubs, including Tottenham, of course, I mean, we've all seen the effects that Tottenham have in terms of market development in South Korea, how these clubs sort of package the product and alter the product of the Premier League games and also the club themselves in a certain way so that it makes sense to all the diverse, differing markets that they're now marketing to. And what's the implication of that in terms of attendance, in terms of the cultural values of the club? So these are the sort of things, but to be covered next time, yeah?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, certainly more to come on that.
Well, I think we said just before we came on air that I think that to really do it as a subject justice, we'd need more time than we probably got today. So I'm absolutely looking forward to having that conversation. Hopefully when you're back from visiting family after the Chinese New Year and things have calmed down a bit for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always happy to share about my work because as an academic, name recognition is always very important as well. So I'll be like doing a shameless plug on my publications and stuff as well.
Please do.
I'm completely happy with that.
Plug away. Well, talking of plugging away, it seems that Tottenham are plugging away at something, and it certainly isn't winning games of football, Graham. I think I shared with you, Graham, my viewing experience for the Everton game. It was early hours of Monday morning, and we painted our living room over the weekend, so everything was off the walls, including the television. It was all unplugged. So I was like a sad, broken man watching the game, the full 90 minutes on my iPad at the breakfast table, drinking my coffee, eating my oatmeal at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and then Lindsay and the kids would walk past periodically, peering over my shoulder, looking at the score and saying, that's going well then. So that was my viewing experience. And I'd kept from the score because I tend to put my phone in airplane mode. And I was always going to watch the full 90. I'm not one of these fans when the going gets tough, you shirk away from watching. I think you've got to do it. I like to call it some character building. But what an appalling first half. And not much better second half. Yes, the score may suggest that we actually almost got back into the game and came out fighting. We really didn't. We didn't lay a glove until about the 75th minute, was it, when we scored? By the way, great goal. Kulusevski, brilliant goal. But pretty worrying. And worrying for me off the back of his comments post Arsenal to say we can't keep doing this. That's not the level we need to be at.
Yeah.
And then we turn that in. I won't shut up, so I better shut up. Graham, what was your view, mate? How did you see it?
It was terrible. I think 3-2 flattered us. Could have been 8 or 9-2 easily. I read something really funny this week, which is that we make every team look like Man City except Man City.
Yeah,
I thought that was quite apt. We make teams that can't buy a goal look like they could score a dozen against us in every match. Every match we look vulnerable against anyone. It doesn't have to be anyone particularly good. I mean, we struggled against Tamworth. We're creating chances against us. It's too easy. And so all 3 goals that Everton scored, defensive errors, obviously the own goal, but just there's a lack of coordination and everyone looks panicked, and it was awful.
There's a video doing the rounds, and David, I'll have you come in a minute on your views of the game broadly and kind of where you watch and how you viewed it. But there's a video circulating, I think it's the 3rd goal, when the only player in the box for Tottenham that was doing anything that resembled defensive kind of minded was Dragusin. But that's kind of expected to a degree, right? Everybody else was not doing the defensive work of a defender because they're not defenders. But then what frustrates me is you've got a player in Dorrington who's now on loan at Aberdeen, hasn't been used at all by Ange, and I just think to myself, would that goal have looked differently if you had a defender in the position? Doesn't matter who it is. If you've got a defender, he's going to do more instinctively defenders' work. And I think that's our biggest issue. Like, we've got round pegs in square bloody holes. I don't know. It's immensely frustrating. But
I think the other thing that really frustrates me is, right, it's the balance of the team, right? So we are set up predominantly to squeeze the game into the high 2/3 of the pitch, right? We don't want to play in our defence. So our line is so high up the pitch that the idea of that is to have more of the ball in the opponent's half and to create more chances, right? We're overloading in the opponent's end of the pitch. But do you see any evidence of that? That what's the point of making ourselves super vulnerable at the back if we can't create chances at the other end? You're better off having a more balanced team, I think, and at least, having a respectable scoreline half the time.
was it on TV in England?
It was.
Yeah.
Usually, the 2 o'clock games are usually a bit hit and miss, but this one was.
I don't know how the Hong Kong stream provider or the UK one did it, but the lineup that Optus Sport in Australia had, they showed Archie Gray playing as a number 6, and I was like, oh, brilliant, we're going to see Archie Gray in a 6. And then when it started, I was like, well, fucked if I know what position he's playing. It looked like he'd been told to play right centre-back and go walkies.
Yeah, it was, and for that whole first half, none of them looked like they knew what they were supposed to be doing. It looked like they'd all turned up on a field having never met each other, and been asked to play football together. It really looked like they did. There was no sign of any coaching in that, the way they started the match.
David, did you see it live, mate?
Switched into a back 3 against Everton felt like, why?
Yeah. Why? Yeah.
I got so many questions and no answers.
Yeah. So, right, guys. Obviously, it's not my sort of verdict for the game. Is I'm really concerned about how brittle this team looks when they're actually playing football. It's about that looming sense of doom that something could go wrong at any moment. And it did go wrong, repeatedly in the first half. Talk about individual mistakes. So the first goal was Pat Matsasara giving the ball away in our own half. The second goal was Dragusin getting skinned for pace, and then it's blasted into top corner. And the third goal was basically, what was the third goal about? The third goal was
that the OG? That was own goal, wasn't it? Great.
Yeah, that was the Archie Gray own goal. That's just a bit of bad luck. But what I wanted to say is that we need to contextualize this mistakes a little bit, because as an elite athlete, when do you usually make those mistakes? It's firstly when you're under a massive amount of pressure, which, judging by these results that we've been going through, every match is a must-win at this point. So that will be a lot of pressure, immense pressure. And secondly, it's when you're in the constant condition of fatigue. And given our injury records this season, basically the team picks themselves at this point, right? So, I mean, we're talking about players who are playing 2 games a week, and every game is a massive, massive must-win with the style of play that we're doing. So my conceptualization would be that, yes, we are brittle, but mistakes do happen when they happen because of the sort of situation that we're in. And then I come to your point, Glenn, about Dorrington and why did Ange refuse to put him in. I mean, it is frustrating that we have academy prospects who are proper defenders while we're playing Archie Gray there at midfielder, who's, well, objectively out of position. But also my other question would be that whether this is the correct moment to put in an academy graduate who's reasonably young and not match tested. So to land someone in a toxic situation like this, where the vast majority of the fan base is really, really unsatisfied with how the things are going, is that the correct moment for them to get plugged in? You know,
it's a really good point, Dave. And I think I mentioned it last time that you really want to be blooding your youngsters in a stable, winning team, surrounded by experienced players, and bringing them in now. It certainly wouldn't be that. It would be, as you said, it would be like them going over the top of during World War One, basically into the firing line. Yeah. So it would be hard. But I felt that given the state of the squad and the injury list, that I didn't think we had any choice. I felt like it was better to try him even for half a game. I mean, he played 10 minutes, I think, in the Europa League game. So.
Yeah.
So maybe it doesn't work, you're right, but we could have managed him in better than we did. And even just because the players that are, as you said, that they are exhausted, basically. They're playing 2 games a week, every week, no breaks, probably training in between that. That they're all tired. So even a bit of respite by rotating a few of those players through some of the games, just to reduce the amount of time that the others are spending on the pitch, might have reduced the number of injuries that we've been getting. And let's be honest, we've seen the performances. Would Dorrington playing 45 minutes in any one of those games change the result? Probably not. We were that bad that he couldn't have done any worse in most cases. But yeah. You're right. It would be difficult to drop someone like that into the current team, the state it's in. But I feel we were at the stage where I'd rather have someone playing in the correct position than keep playing players all over the place. But
yeah, mate. I mean, yeah, my point. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I mean, my point is it's more about sort of like mitigation rather than like a justification. I mean, there's certainly very good points that you guys have made in terms of putting youngsters in. I'm just trying to, be the sort of a bogeyman in terms of why that might not have been the case, if you get me. And the other thing,
I'm sure he would, that Andrew would justify it, would have a good justification for it. But I guess it's just a degree of frustration. And especially when the players in that area that we're talking about, specifically centre back, is here. We've had the most injuries around our defence. It's been almost unreal. It's I can't remember ever a season so disrupted by injuries. You always get injuries, but this has been, more than half the squad is injured. That's not normal, and it's probably something that I know they said they're going to look at the medical team, but something's not right in the club. Something fundamentally is wrong.
My bigger concern with it is we've essentially sleptwalk our way. If we lose to Leicester, we've sleptwalk our way into a relegation fight, which sounds absolutely bonkers to say, but we have. And then I just start to think, well, can we just get to 40 points?
Yeah, and the thing is as well, right? If you look at the teams that are in and around us, that they're starting to pick up points, right? But these are teams that are going to roll their sleeves up and going to battle to the end of the season. I don't see anything in our team that says that we're ready for that kind of fight.
And with all the greatest respect to As Postecoglou, and I have been a huge supporter of him, and I'm probably somewhere in the middle on what we actually do, and we can get to that later. But what we currently resemble, it reminds me of a juniors team where I'm just trying to get the basics across of football. And if you lose, lads, it's all right. We've got next week, but you did that good pass, or you created that good run. I know we lost 5-0, but you did this really well, and you now understand the fundamentals, and you're getting the fundamentals of the game. That's what it reminds me of. It's almost like it doesn't matter. The result doesn't matter. You're still learning. You're still going to execute on what I'm asking you. But the results do matter because we're 15.
And also, he's had 18 months to get his ideas across, and yet it's still failing. And irrespective of whether these are the first choice players or not, his principles should be clear to them by now, right? So I could understand if there was a completely new players came in and they took some time to adjust to the way he plays. But everyone that's there has been there, apart from Kinski, of course, has been there since at least the summer. And if they had picked it up in 6 to 8 months of training with him, they're probably not going to. I would say. Yeah, it's just, I know that worries me that either he's not able to get his ideas across properly, or they're interpreting it incorrectly, or they forget it all the minute they get out on the pitch, or they only selectively remember it when we play Man City. I don't understand it.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to a mate, we had a conversation of football the other night, I play football 5-a-side, and the question came up of, is Ange Postecoglou breaking Tottenham or are Tottenham breaking him?
I think it's the latter. I really do. It's like we've created a situation that does not allow him to play the way he wants to play. He doesn't have the tools available to him. And we'll come onto the transfer window in a bit, but we've all known we've had a long injury list since beginning of November, I think. So we're nearly 3 months into an injury crisis, and we had November, December to get prepared to bring players in January, and it's what now, 23rd of January. We've signed a goalkeeper, which was a position we needed covering for sure. No argument there. But actually, there are other areas of the pitch, like how we haven't bought a centre back by now.
Well, you just
we could get late with attacking players.
You just said Graham covering it later. I think we had, but I think it's an important point to make, right? I think we've segued into transfers. We can come back to the Hoffenheim game in a moment. We've kind of covered Everton, but the transfers are a valid concern for me because I'm not asking for us to go and sign world beaters and spend 400 million quid. We need bodies. Like, we need people who are capable of coming in, even if it's a short-term loan, a year's loan, a 6-month loan, whatever it is, experienced players. And you've done some research here, Graham, and I'll come back to you on it, but we don't have bodies right now. We keep being told that, but yet we're not going to get anybody. It's bizarre. And then we're being told the market is tough. Like, well, you've listed here some signings that have been made by other clubs. I mean, just to give an example,
21 signings in this window so far across all clubs.
All had injuries, ironically, signings.
Ironically, counting Youngmin Hook, who obviously only arrived this month, and Kinski, of course. But like teams that have had problems are fixing them. Like Southampton have brought in 3 players. Wolves have brought someone in. Forest have brought someone in. Man City have brought 3 players in. Man City had, by their own standards, an absolutely awful season, right? They're very high standards, but they're currently 4th, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
They've brought in 3 players and they've spent, I don't know, probably nearly 200 million on those 3 players. They've spent a lot of money, right? And but yeah, like Leicester have brought someone in. Ipswich have brought 2 players in. Palace have brought someone in. Brighton's brought someone in. Bournemouth have brought 4 players in. Villa have brought 2.
Yeah.
So all the teams that have had issues have addressed them in the window.
Well,
but I've read so much rubbish like, oh, it's a difficult January transfer window. Well, the market says otherwise because people are moving backwards and forwards between clubs. We just don't seem to want to commit to buying people in January. I'm not saying we haven't got the money or we don't want to spend the money, but there's obviously a reason why we don't want to do it. Maybe they don't want to invest in, it's all words that they want to invest in. They want to support Ange. And actually, they're worried about committing more money to him in players to suit his style that they might have to undo in the summer. I don't know.
David, I'd like to add a bit to that in terms of, how difficult this January window is. And my first question is difficult in terms of what? Is it difficult in terms of getting people through the door? Or is it difficult to find the perfect value for money, which seems to be what we're doing? And also the other thing that I've noticed from our recent transfer dealings is that it's not just about the perfect value for money. It's got to be the right profile as well. And that profile, up until this point, has appeared to be people that is under the age of 23, who, up and coming, who might develop into something, and we're throwing a lot of money at them. We were looking at Brennan Johnson, we're looking at Archie Gray. I mean, they're good players, they put shits in, they also have rooms to grow, but there surely comes a point in terms of management where you have to think about the now.
Now.
Yes. Right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem that I really found with the sort of general management of this club is the fact that we don't really think in terms of contingencies. So, for instance, we don't think about what will happen if our entire first team explodes. I mean, of course, that's not something that most people would think about on a daily basis. But surely you need to think, okay, what if this happens? Then we've got to do something about it. There's plans in place where we can do a specific strategy that might not be conventional to the way we're doing right now, but might work in that specific scenario. So, for instance, speak of, I don't know, like an example, NASA, they're flying a rocket ship, right? They're flying a rocket. And what would happen if an astronaut beams back to you and says that, okay, something's gone wrong, and your immediate response is, well, I don't know. There's no contingency there. There's no plan. So
see you with that summer.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just not that's just not the transfer itself as well. It's also other stuff in terms of how this club is managed by the upper management, right? It's about the medical team. We've had a horrible injury crisis last season, and we're having one right now as well. And the types and nature of injuries have very similar profiles to last season as well. So then the question is, why hasn't the medical team predicted that and maybe say that, well, in that Chelsea game, don't play Romero and Van der Ven at the same time, right? Because then they go off injured again. Or why has upper management said that, okay, the medical team is clearly not up to scratch. Just replace them in a more convenient time when we don't need them at the current moment when there's multiple players injured, right? And that's also something that we also see with the European places in terms of registration. Every year when we're in Europe, we talk about, these Welsh players can't be registered under homegrown, and therefore we've got a homegrown problem. How many years in a row have we said that? But why is that?
Yeah.
Why is that not getting fixed?
And it's got worse. It's got worse,
exactly.
Not better. The number of homegrown players has dwindled over the last 2 or 3 seasons to the point now where, like Kinski, if we put Kinski in the Europa League squad at the end of the group stage, we'll lose a squad number because we won't have enough homegrown players because he'll have to replace either Forster, Brandon Austin, or a Whitman. So one of those three will have to make way for him. And as soon as you do that, I think if you don't have the required number of homegrown players, then your squad gets reduced by one. Yeah. And we also need to bring in, I don't know, it's just, you're right. It feels like we're so busy picking prospects for the future so that we've got a long-term vision of what we want to do, that we're looking at the horizon, not at our feet. The problems are right at our feet at the moment. Yeah, and we're not addressing them. We are still, even now, I think if we buy players, you're absolutely right. They will follow the same profile. We will buy 19, 20-year-old players who are great prospects, and we'll have the same issues that we've got now introducing them in that. Why would you introduce a player like that into this mess? It's very difficult, right? And there's And if you're going to do that, if you're going to introduce a player at that age, why not just use Dorrington, who's familiar with the surroundings, has been on the bench, has played minutes? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like nobody involved in the scouting and recruitment and squad building has any view on the current situation on the pitch. Because, as you said, it's not even like this is a thing that happened this week, right? This didn't happen on January the 1st. This has been happening since November, at least. So they've had time to build a contingency and to fix it in January, but they haven't. They've chosen not to. The only thing I can think of that they've decided that they're going to let it run and see how we just write the season off and deal with it in the summer.
Well, the thing is, right, and I don't know where you guys sit on Ange, I think he's making a bit of a rod for his own back with his comments that he said recently after the Everton game, I think it was, this will dissipate. I think word for word, it was, this will dissipate. We've got extreme talent to come back into this team and we will start to find consistency again. Well, we better then, once that happens, right? Because then it becomes an Ange problem.
If you look at some of the games that we lost earlier in the season or drew, like the Leicester game, full squad, we drew 1-1 with Leicester. We lost to Ipswich with our full team out.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not the players, it is the system.
I'm in sales, right? And we sell quite a volatile service in that it's legal, right? We're dependent on litigation and we're dependent on disputes, and disputes settle all the time, right? And there goes our revenue. So we've got to make sure we have a pipeline to backfill that. We're always trying to look for the next one. If I didn't have anything to backfill that, I'd be looking for another job because I'm not doing my job, right? And that's kind of what it feels like with his comments. Because he says, we've got so much talent to walk back into this squad and this will dissipate. But that's the same weekend where we've just lost to Everton going 3-0 out at half time, and Brennan Johnson and Solanke are now injured. So there's two more to add to the list.
And Sarr now as well.
And Sarr.
No.
So I've been, as I said, pretty supportive of Ange, and I've been a big fan, and I like how we play football, and I like him. Like, I think he's an honest guy. I think he's direct. I think he's everything that maybe we have needed in many ways. But is he a bit tactically inept? I'm starting to wonder. You know, it's a big concern. Like, I'm not saying fire him, to be clear, because we'll see we go against Leicester and Hoffenheim. But
let's switch to Hoffenheim now, because I think a lot of the things you're saying about will be are amplified by this match because of the Europa League squad, right?
Yeah.
So I'll go through the unavailable players. Sarr, Solanke, Romero, Van der Ven, Udogi, Vicario, Werner, Odeberg, Johnson, Bissouma, Forster. And then on top of that, the ones that aren't in the squad, Jed Spence, Kinski, Reguilon. So we got two of the players that we probably would have brought into the defence are not available. The keeper we probably would have chosen, not available. So it's going to lead to again, massively compromised first 11 choice, right? Massively. So I don't know who plays. I can't tell you who the four defenders are going to be.
Yeah, because Spence
it's probably going to be Porro, Dragusin, Ben Davis, Archie Gray, I'm guessing. That's the only thing I can think of. That's the only four defenders I think we can put on the pitch.
Yeah.
Oh, and I've heard rumours that Romero is training, so maybe he's on the bench, but I can't see him starting him in this game. Can you?
You can't do that. I mean, it's just coming back from an injury. If you do that again, I mean, haven't we learned our lessons?
No, well, I would say we have, but has he? That's all we're saying. But then, and then the midfield's the same. Like we're again running very low on resources. We've got Archie Gray could play there, but he'll probably have to play in defence because there's no options. Bergvall, Kulusevski, probably I'm guessing Maddison would be an option there. But then up front again, got no Slaggy, so we've got Richarlison will probably have to play as a 9 or Lancashire, and then maybe Mikey Moore. Son, I think, has been so out of form that I don't think he adds anything on the pitch at the moment. I know he scored, but I don't think it wasn't going to go in without assistance. It just, I feel like if we get something out of this Hoffenheim game, and they are, just to be clear, right? Their form this season is absolutely worse than ours, and that's really hard, right? So I think this has got another Dr. Tottenham all over it, as far as I can see. My worry is, right, the last thing we need is 2 extra Europa League playoff games. Absolutely, the last thing we need right now is extra games. And I'm worried that we're not going to get top 8 in the Europa League. Even though we're playing Hoffenheim and Elfsborg, who haven't played football since November. I don't see where we get a win at the moment.
And we'll probably do predictions in a minute, but I called it. I was talking to a mate here, and David, I'm keen for you to come in on Hoffenheim and kind of what your kind of prediction is and the view, and are you watching it live, etc. But I said to my mate, we will lose against Hoffenheim, and we will get a score draw against Leicester, and I think that ends the Ange Postecoglou project. Is my opinion. I think that's how the games are going to go. Will we record again before Leicester, Graham? I think we will, won't we?
Yeah, let's try and do one at the weekend.
Yeah. So we'll cover that in more depth on that episode. But David, do you have a prediction for us for the Hoffenheim game? Are you watching it live? Are you going to watch it? How do you feel? Where do you sit on this on the Europa League game coming up?
Well, I mean, I'm absolutely going to watch it, given the reasonably kind time that this match is at, which is 1:45 a.m. in the morning. So it's not like in the dead of night. Well, just. So I'll watch it live, and my prediction would be, because I've also done a little bit of research in Hoffenheim, like right before the recording session. So basically, I've looked at their recent results, and you're right in the sense that it is horrid, but the patient is recovering. To, borrow the Dr. Tottenham analogy a little bit, because they did just won the league game, which, when was the last time we did that?
Yeah.
So maybe we're the patient and they're the doctor.
Yeah. You might be right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it?
But I mean, like,
How was it? Was it November?
You haven't won a league game since it's had Southampton away, but we haven't won a home league game since Villa at home. You know what? I heard another stat as well. We haven't won back-to-back Premier League games since September. And that's appalling.
Yeah.
And we're clinging to this semi-final second leg. Well, I am, because I've firmly put my colours on the mast saying we're going to win the cup. I'm starting to regret saying that now. But we as a club and an entity seem to be clinging to that, right? And it would be so Tottenham, wouldn't it, to find themselves in a relegation battle, but win a cup.
Yeah, this is how I think it will play out, right? We will stumble along till that game. We will maybe we pick up a point, maybe we don't. And then that's February, right? February 6th or February, first week of February, right? That game.
Yeah, the semi-final, yeah.
So we lose that, he gets sacked. And then the window's already closed, so they don't have to spend any money in the transfer window.
Yeah, that's probably what will happen.
Ryan Mason for the rest of the season, or Matt Wells, and then we just kind of see out the rest of the season, hoping to stay just above 17th. Maybe we have an FA Cup run, but I can't see it at the moment. I mean, only this club can be this big a roller coaster, right? It's so hard, supporting this club. It really is.
Well, and before we close out, because I know we're close to the end, so. My score prediction for Hoffenheim, I think we're going to lose 2-1. And I've got something else to say as well. But David, do you want to give us a score? What do you reckon the Hoffenheim game will finish?
I mean, I'm ever the optimist, and my optimism is now limited to predicting a draw. I'll say 2-2.
Funny, I'm at the point where I take a draw.
Yeah.
That's how desperate I feel about this. I feel at least if it would probably mean that we'd scored, because we're definitely going to concede. Well, yeah, I'm hoping this won't be one of my predictions where we have to score at least 3 goals to not lose the game. But
absolutely. And
if we can see 3 goals against Hoffenheim, we might as well just fold the club right now.
Yeah.
Think about the money.
And before we do end, the one thing I wanted to say, and it's going back a little bit to transfers. Now, I'm not saying we should have gone and got this player because he's in his prime and he's what he was. Kyle Walker is about to sign for AC Milan on a loan deal. Now, why wouldn't we be in for him? right? He spent years at
Still
Tottenham.
better than anything we've got, isn't he?
Correct. He can play right in the centre. He can play right. He can play wing back. He's still quite quick. He's a good defender. He loves Tottenham. He's experienced. It just baffles me that you wouldn't look at that and say, 6 months, we'll pay somebody
But it's a 6 months loan. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
6 months loan would have been perfect.
I read that and I'm like, and look, Milan, maybe there's appeal there then, but I'm just saying if we were in the mix, like maybe we could give him as a player and his agent something to think about. It just drives me bonkers that we don't see these opportunities.
And that's a player that's won a lot, right? So it knows what it takes to win trophies. Has the experience to be a lot.
Explain it. Sorry to interject there, mate. I can sort of explain it. I think I know why we're not making moves on Kyle Walker or any sort of other players that's available on a short-term notice. Firstly, well, if I'm the management team, and we've known how our management team operates in a certain way, I'll be thinking about not what it does in the short term, but first resale values. Kyle Walker's not going to have a lot of resale value in the long term, right? Even for a short-term loan deal, then what are you getting out of it? Paying people low money where you could be getting other players, right? And the second thing is the wage structure, because basically that's what Enick and this entire management group is thinking. They're thinking purely in terms of financial terms. And that's where I sort of differ a little bit in terms of the general sort of activity in the transfer window. We're not going to wait until summer, not because that this football project is sinking or that we need to back the manager or that we need to appease all the fans who are, add NX back, but purely because for every position that we raise in the Premier League, it means money. It means tens of millions of pounds, and no ownership group is going to be impartial to that. They're all at the end of the day there to earn money and to inflate the asset, and that's they will be compelled to act. It's about how they act, which fits the best sporting interests of the club, which I just don't see at the very moment. I'm sorry, I agree that I've been branded myself as an optimist, but I just don't see how you snap out of that mindset of just maximizing asset value and then get into a mindset of what's the best thing right now for the sporting project, even if that means making a bigger loss in the short term. It will eventually pay out in the long term, but I just don't think they've got the long-term vision to see that.
Yeah, fair.
I think you're right. I absolutely agree that the ownership of the club is 100% focused on the financials, and that even though we put in place a new footballing structure, right? So we have everything from mum down through name just came to my mind. We've completely put all these people in place, but ultimately the philosophy of what we do as a football club always comes from the chairman and from the board. And so if they continue the way they are to treat us purely as a business, if we are run purely as a business without the football being at the centre of that, actually we're a sideshow now to their
business empire,
real estate empire. Basically, it's all about the stadium and the outside football interests are around now. NFL, exactly, and even the land they've bought up around the stadium is all about making money from real estate. It really is, and that's not money that's going back to the club, and it's certainly not going on the pitch. We all know that. So yeah, it's depressing. But then it's kind of modern ownership, unless you've got you're an oligarch or a nation state where money, it's actually a marketing tool. It's about whitewashing the country that owns it, or it's about just a plaything for somebody who's got more money than God. It's just like, if you look at the Glazers, that they're not. I know they probably spent more money than we have, but they're not being run with the football as the primary concern, I don't think. But certainly I feel we've been footballing rudderless for some time now, since they took over.
Yeah.
I don't think they've ever really had any interest in football.
Sad
Yeah.
state of affairs.
Yeah, it's called financialization in our sort of sociological playbook. It basically means that the impetus of the capital behind all of these things overrides whatever existing objectives there are. And that's just the truth at the very moment. I can't say anything different. I can't say that, oh, it's just a phase that we go through. It's not, it's where we're going. And incidentally, that's also part of my work. So stay tuned for next time.
Good stuff.
Looking forward to it.
Good stuff.
So thank you, David. Really appreciate you joining us today. It's great to get some different insight.
Yeah, been an excellent guest, mate. Welcome back anytime, and we look forward to the deeper dive into some of your work. Well, I have nothing else to add, Graham, other than, as I say every week, come on, you Spurs. I'll let you close us out, Graham.
Thanks to everyone who's listened in. Please like and subscribe to the podcast to tickle the algorithm so we can get in front of more Tottenham supporters. And as Glenn said, to close us out, come on, you Spurs. You can contact us on email at tottenhamhomeandaway@gmail.com or on Twitter X @TottenhamH&A.